We've all heard tales of impossible odds, a few against many, the cornered animal fighting with the fury of the doomed. But what happens when the smaller army is not just outnumbered, but sick, starving, and hundreds of miles from home? What happens when 7,000 exhausted soldiers face 25,000 of the most heavily armored knights in Europe on a field of liquid mud? This isn't a story, it's a receipt, a bill for a kingdom, paid in blood and steel on a rainy French morning. This is the story of a trap made of wood, string, and mud, and how on October 25th, 1415, the flower of French chivalry walked right into it and was annihilated. The place was called Agincourt. The year is 1415. 100 years, the war between England and France has been dragging on for generations. The new English king, Henry V, is young, ambitious, and deeply religious. He is the son of a usurper, Henry IV, who took the throne by force. Because of this, his own claim to the English crown is fragile. He needs to prove himself, not just as a warrior, but as a king chosen by God, and the ancient claim to the throne of France is his ultimate tool. He reopens negotiations with the French, but his demands are designed to be rejected. He wants all the lands of the old Angevin Empire, a massive dowry of 2 million crowns for marrying the French princess, Catherine, and the French crown itself. The French offer compromises. Henry offers only war. English propaganda of the time even claimed the French Dauphin sent Henry a gift of tennis balls, a mocking insult to his youth. Whether true or not, it fueled the fire. For Henry, this war is personal. It is his path to legitimacy. If you value documented history like this, subscribe. It's the best way to support our work. Also, comment from which city you're hearing this from. Our account of this campaign isn't based on legend. It's built from the ground up, using sources written by men who were there. We rely on the anonymous Latin chronicle known as the Gesta Henrici Quinti, or the Deeds of Henry V, penned by a chaplain who marched and prayed with Henry's army. We cross-checked that with the work of modern historians like Professor Anne Curry, whose 2005 analysis in Agincourt, A New History, broke down the actual muster rolls, supply lists, and letters that tell us who was there and how many truly fought. Now back to the information. On August 14th, 1415, Henry's fleet of 1,500 ships lands near the mouth of the Seine River. His army is about 12,000 strong, a cross-section of English society. About a quarter are men-at-arms, the knights and nobles in full-plate armor. The other three-quarters, the heart of his army, are the longbowmen. These are not peasants forced to fight. They are yeomen, free men, professional soldiers who have trained with the great yew longbow since they were boys. This weapon is a 6-foot stave of yew wood with a draw weight of over 100 pounds. To master it required immense strength and years of practice. Each archer carried a sheaf of 24 arrows, with thousands more held in reserve wagons. They were a disciplined, deadly force, the core of Henry's entire military strategy. Their target, the fortified town of Harfleur, is a critical port. It's supposed to be an easy victory, a quick show of strength before the main campaign. It isn't. The siege drags on for 5 brutal weeks. The French defenders, led by the brave Sire de Gaucourt, fight for every inch of ground. Henry's great cannons, with names like London and Messenger, pound the walls day and night, but the town refuses to yield. Worse, disease breaks out in the English camp. The thousands of men, packed together with poor sanitation, create a breeding ground for dysentery. The English call it the bloody flux. It's a miserable, undignified way to die. Men who had crossed the channel dreaming of glory are dying in agony in the filth of their own trenches. The sickness claims men of all ranks, from common archers to high nobles like Richard Courtenay, the Bishop of Norwich. By the time Harfleur finally surrenders on September 22nd, Henry has lost at least 2,000 men. His army is a shadow of what it was. It is sick, it is tired, and the campaigning season is almost over. The safe play is to garrison Harfleur and sail back to England. His senior commanders, including his own brother, the Duke of Clarence, beg him to do so, but Henry refuses. He will not slink away like a thief in the night. He announces a decision that must have seemed like madness to his men. He will march the remaining army, now perhaps only 7,000 men, about 900 men-at-arms and the rest archers, overland, 150 miles, to the English-held port of Calais. It is a chevauchée, a mounted raid deep into enemy territory. The goal is not to conquer land, but to sow chaos and prove that the French king cannot protect his own people. It is an act of breathtaking arrogance or supreme faith. He is daring the French to stop him. The French are more than willing to oblige. As Henry's ragged army marches northeast, a massive French force begins to gather under the joint command of the Constable of France, Charles d'Albret, and the veteran Marshal Boucicaut. They are joined by the greatest nobles of the kingdom, the Duke of Orléans, the Duke of Bourbon, the Duke of Alençon. They are not just raising an army, they are assembling the very soul of French chivalry. Their numbers swell, 15,000, 20,000, maybe as many as 30,000 men, with thousands of heavily armored knights at its core. They easily outnumber the English 3, maybe 4 to 1. They don't just want to defeat Henry, they want to capture him and the entire English nobility for what would be the greatest ransom in history. Their strategy is sound. They will use their numbers to shepherd the English, cut off their food supply, and trap them against a natural barrier, the River Somme. Henry's march becomes a desperate race. The French army shadows him, staying on the north side of the river. They block every bridge, every ford. They implement a scorched earth policy, stripping the countryside of food. For 8 agonizing days, the English are forced to march south, away from Calais, deeper into enemy territory, desperately searching for a place to cross. Food runs out. The men are reduced to eating nuts and whatever they can scavenge. The dysentery doesn't stop. You can see the fear in their eyes. Every day the French army on the far bank gets bigger. Every day the English army gets weaker. The despair is palpable. Finally, their scouts find 2 unguarded fords, miles upstream. It is a moment of pure luck. They cross the Somme, but they've lost precious time. The main French army, realizing its mistake, marches hard and fast. It gets ahead of the English. On October 24th, Henry's scouts report the terrible news. The entire French army is now in front of them, blocking the road to Calais. There will be no escape. A battle is now inevitable. On the evening of October 24th, the 2 armies pitch camp within sight of each other. They are on a road that runs through a narrow clearing, flanked on both sides by the dense woods of Tremicourt and Agincourt. And then the rain begins, a cold, relentless autumn downpour that lasts all night long. The ground, a freshly plowed field rich with clay soil, turns into a sea of thick, clinging mud. For the English, it is a miserable night. They are soaked, freezing, and hungry. You hear them sharpening their weapons, mending their bowstrings, confessing their sins to the chaplains, preparing to die. They know the odds. The king orders absolute silence. He walks among his men, speaking to them quietly, reassuring them. The only sound is the rain, the squelch of mud, and the hushed sound of prayer. The French camp is a different world. It is loud, bright with bonfires, full of arrogant confidence. They believe victory is a certainty. They are playing dice, the stakes being the English nobles they expect to capture the next day. The great lords argue over who will get the honor of the first charge, who will capture the English king himself, their heavy horses, their servants. Their wagons churn the ground in front of their own lines into a swamp. They are so sure of their numbers, of their superior armor, of their divine right to win, that they cannot imagine any other outcome. They don't see the field for what it is. They don't see the rain as a threat. They don't see the trap. Dawn, October 25th, St. Crispin's Day. The rain has stopped, but the sky is gray. The field between the 2 armies is a nightmare. It is a channel of mud, maybe 750 yards wide at its broadest point. This geography is Henry's only advantage. The woods on either side mean the French cannot use their massive numbers to outflank him. They have to attack straight ahead into a deadly funnel. Henry arranges his small army with meticulous care. He places his men-at-arms, the armored knights, in 3 small blocks in the center, with Henry himself commanding the main body. On the flanks, he places his most important weapon, his 5,000 longbowmen. They are not arrayed in a flat line, but in wedges that jut out, creating overlapping fields of fire. And in front of them, they have their secret weapon. Henry has ordered every archer to carry a thick wooden stake, 6 feet long, sharpened at both ends. They jam these stakes into the ground, pointing towards the enemy. A simple, brutal fence against a cavalry charge. For 3 agonizing hours, nothing happens. The French, despite their eagerness, are waiting. Their commanders, d'Albret and Boucicaut, have learned from past defeats at Crécy and Poitiers. They know a head-on cavalry charge against prepared archers is suicide. So their plan is for their first 2 waves of men-at-arms to advance on foot. They will let the English attack first, to exhaust themselves slogging through the mud. Henry understands this. He knows his men are too weak to wait all day. He makes a terrifying decision. He will provoke the fight. He gives the order. Advance banners. The entire English army takes a collective breath, uproots its defensive stakes, and begins to walk forward. Slowly, deliberately, they advance several hundred yards through the sucking mud, until they are within extreme range of the French line, about 300 yards. They halt, they plant their stakes again, It is an incredible display of discipline. It is a direct insult. It works. If you believe in telling history as it truly happened, with all its grit and horror, then hit that subscribe button. We don't do myths here, only documented facts. Let us know in the comments which battle you want us to break down next. The sources, like the Chronicle of Jean Lefebvre, who was a herald with the English army, describe the scene. He writes of the French being packed so tightly they could not even lift their arms to swing their weapons. Now back to the fight. The French are stunned by the audacity. Their chivalric pride is wounded. The great nobles overrule their cautious commanders. The order is given for the first wave to attack. Thousands of French men-at-arms, on foot, begin to advance. They are the elite of the army, clad head to toe in 60 pounds of shining steel plate. But from the moment they take their first step, they are in trouble. The mud, it is thick, sticky and deep. It sucks at their steel-cased feet. Every step is a monumental effort. Their advance slows to a crawl. They are a perfect target. In the English lines, the veteran commander Sir Thomas Erpingham throws his baton into the air. It is the signal. A roar goes up from 5,000 English and Welsh throats. Now strike. The sky darkens. The sound is a physical thing, like the tearing of a giant cloth. The first volley of arrows, 10,000 arrows in the first few seconds. Then another volley, and another. A trained English longbowman can shoot 10 or maybe 12 arrows a minute. That means 50,000 arrows are falling on the French vanguard every 60 seconds. The arrows come down in a high arc, plunging almost straight down. They find the weak spots, the eye slits in a helmet, the joints at the neck, the armpits, the groin. The noise alone is terrifying. It forces the French knights to lower their visors, restricting their vision and their breathing as they labor through the mud. The real target, though, is the French cavalry, positioned on the wings to sweep away the English archers. The horses, with little armor, are devastated. A warhorse hit with a bodkin arrow doesn't die quietly. It screams, rears, and bolts, crashing into other horses, trampling the men on foot, and utterly destroying the coherence of the French charge. The cavalry attack dissolves into chaos before it even begins. The few knights who get close to the English lines are met by the forest of sharpened stakes. They're impaled, thrown, and their attack breaks completely. Now the main French assault, the thousands of knights on foot, continues its slow, agonizing march through the arrow storm. Men are falling, wounded, tripping over the dead and dying. The sheer weight of numbers becomes a fatal liability. The men in the front cannot move forward because of the arrows and the press of bodies, and the men in the back keep pushing, compressing the formation into a helpless, struggling mass of humanity. They are exhausted before they even reach the English line. Their armor, meant to be their greatest strength, becomes a lead weight, dragging them down into the mud. When the exhausted survivors of the French first wave finally stumble into the English line of men-at-arms, they are met by fresher, less encumbered men. The English line bends, but it does not break. Henry himself is in the thick of the fighting. At one point, the French Duke of Alençon fights his way through to the king, striking Henry's helmet and cleaving off a piece of his crown before being cut down. Henry's younger brother, Humphrey, Duke of Gloucester, is wounded in the groin and falls. Henry stands over his body, defending him from attack. And now, Henry plays his trump card. The longbowmen, having fired all their arrows, drop their bows. They are not knights. They are commoners, yeomen. They wear little armor, just leather jerkins or padded coats. They are armed with what they have: swords, hatchets, knives, and heavy wooden mallets used for hammering in their stakes, and they are mobile. While the French knights are stuck in the mud, the lightly equipped archers can move around it. They swarm off the flanks and pour into the struggling mass of Frenchmen. It is not a duel of knights. It is a butchering. The archers go to work with brutal efficiency. They pull the heavily armored knights down, surrounding them. Once a knight is on the ground, his armor makes him as helpless as an overturned turtle. The archers use their daggers to stab through visors or lift helmets to slit throats. The French second line, watching this horror unfold, advances to help, but they only add to the crush, piling into the morass of mud and bodies, and meeting the same fate. A mound of French dead and wounded begins to grow in front of the English line, a grotesque wall 3 or 4 men deep. At the height of this slaughter, something happens in the English rear. A local French lord, Isambard d'Azincourt, leading a small force of peasants and a few men-at-arms, raids the English baggage camp. They steal treasure, including one of Henry's crowns, and kill the young boys and servants guarding the gear. From the main battle line, Henry sees the commotion. He looks back at the French third line, their largest and freshest force, which is still intact and watching from a distance. In the chaos of battle, he makes a terrible assumption. He thinks this is a coordinated attack from his rear, that the battle is about to turn against him. He has thousands of high-value French prisoners, nobles taken in the first assault, yes, being held for ransom just behind his lines. If the third line attacks and the prisoners are freed, they could rearm themselves and attack his army from behind. He would be surrounded and annihilated. He makes a decision that will stain his victory forever. He gives a direct order: kill the prisoners. All of them. This is a violation of the chivalric code. These men are worth fortunes in ransom. The English knights and squires guarding them hesitate. Some even refuse. It is an unthinkable act. Henry is furious. He threatens to hang any man who disobeys. The grim work begins. The archers, with no such chivalric scruples, are tasked with the slaughter. Hundreds, perhaps over 1,000, of the most powerful men in France have their throats cut. From their position on the field, the French third line watches this happen. They see their captured comrades being systematically executed. They see the mountain of their own dead. The fight is gone from them. Their commanders try to rally them for one last charge in True, but it is hopeless. They break. They turn and they flee the field. The Battle of Agincourt is over. Henry, not yet sure if the victory is complete, rides through his lines. He sees the sheer scale of the carnage. The field is covered in the dead and dying. The French losses are catastrophic. Estimates range from 6,000 to as high as 10,000 killed. The dead include the army's commanders, Constable Charles d'Albret and Admiral Jacques de Chatillon. 3 dukes are dead: Alençon, Brabant, and Bar. So are 5 counts and 90 barons. Over 1,500 other knights lie dead in the mud. The English losses are, by comparison, miraculously light. Contemporary sources list as few as 100, though modern estimates place it closer to 400 or 500. The highest-ranking English dead are the Duke of York and the young Earl of Suffolk. The English had not just won. They had erased an entire generation of the French military and political leadership. Henry forbids his men from celebrating, ordering them to attribute the victory entirely and humbly to God. Henry and his small, battered army finally march to Calais. The journey back to England is one of triumph. In London, he is greeted as a hero, a king chosen by God. The victory at Agincourt is seen as a divine judgment on the French and a validation of Henry's claim to their throne. It is a moment of supreme English glory, a story that will be told for centuries. But the victory on the field was not the end of the story. The crippling losses at Agincourt shattered the French leadership and plunged the country into a deeper civil war between the factions of the Armagnacs and the Burgundians. This weakness allowed Henry V to return to France 2 years later, not as a raider, but as a conqueror, systematically taking castle after castle in Normandy. The momentum from that one muddy field led directly to the year 1420 and the signing of the Treaty of Troyes. It was an astonishing document. The French king, Charles VI, who suffered from bouts of insanity, was forced to declare Henry to be his heir, disinheriting his own son, the Dauphin. Henry married the French king's daughter, Catherine of Valois, sealing the deal. An English king was now the official heir to the throne of France. But this triumph was short-lived. Just 2 years later, at the height of his power, Henry V died, probably from dysentery contracted at yet another siege. His heir was his son, Henry VI, an infant less than a year old. The dream of a dual monarchy under a strong English king died with him, and the war reignited, leading to the rise of Joan of Arc and decades more of bloodshed. Agincourt was a staggering tactical victory, a day of almost unbelievable slaughter, but its ultimate prize, the crown of France, turned to dust. The longbows fell silent. The mud dried. But, for a generation, a French crown rested on an English promise, bought with the blood of thousands on St. Crispin's Day.